See here. All right. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Leedz Edutainment Podcast, brought to you by Mellow Dispensary in Haverhill, Mass, and Chubby Chickpea Restaurant. Today we got a very special guest, Joshua Ames, part owner of the Shaskeen Pub in Manchester, New Hampshire. Well, how are you, Josh? I know we just jumped through a lot of hoops.
Good. How are you?
Good. I mean, we were supposed to do this on IG Live, but unfortunately, technical issues have caused us problems. But we are here now. We're going to make it work. And thank you for your time, man.
No problem.
So for people that don't know, I just want to let people know the Shaskeen Pub has been doing a lot of hip hop shows. We'll talk hip hop because this is hip hop podcast. But you guys have done some really great shows there. Some of the people you brought through are members of the Wu-Tang, KRS-One, Mobb Deep, Dead Prez, Maya, Styles P, Lord Finesse, Rugged Man, Rari the Rugged Man, MOP, Cannabis, Scarface, Cool G Rap, Ritz. Am I forgetting any other crucial ones?
We've probably done about 50 to 75 big name hip hop shows at this point. So yeah, I mean, all the Strange Music dudes, Test Crew, Ritz. I mean,
So the Shaskeen Pub, what does that even mean, I guess, for people that don't know? The Shaskeen, what is that?
So Shaskeen, basically, I'm not sure if you ever saw that movie back in the day with Ralph Macchio, like Crossroads.
I didn't see it, but I remember the movie.
Okay, so basically, like down in the Mississippi Delta, this guy sold his soul to the devil to learn how to play the guitar perfectly. So that's based on an old Irish folk tale called the Shaskeen Reel. So basically, this guy met the devil at the crossroads in Ireland, gave him his fiddle and learned how to play the Shaskeen Reel. And it's also Gaelic for a boggy marshy area, like the west coast of Ireland, where our original owners were from. So that's pretty much what Shaskeen means.
So let's talk about the history of the venue. The venue is I remember the layout. There's a bar, there's a restaurant, and then in the back is the venue section of it, correct?
Yep.
And it was originally built as just a straight Irish pub, correct?
Yes, but I mean, the sound zones were always separated. So, there's a stage music area in the back. And, back when we first opened, we'd always play Irish music up front and then be, cover bands or whatever on the weekends out back.
Were you an owner in the beginning? It opened in 2005, correct?
Yes. No, I became an owner in 2010. Me and my friends bought it. I was a bartender from day one until 2010.
And in Manchester, New Hampshire. For those that don't know, are you from New Hampshire originally?
I grew up in upstate New York, and I moved here when I was 11. So
close enough.
Been here. Yeah.
What section of New Hampshire did you live in?
Oh, Manchester and pretty much Derry during high school.
And for those that don't know, I'm from Sandown, New Hampshire. I moved there when I was 12 years old. A little small town with really not much to do, but I'm very familiar with Derry and Manchester. But the city, that area is not an area known for music. When I was growing up, it was a very tough area. I left because of that reason. I had to go to Boston because the music scene was just, you either were DJing in a bar, but that was really it. There was a couple spots back there. They would do live events, but it wasn't like set live venues from what I remember. Am I correct in saying that?
Oh, absolutely. Literally, when I was growing up here, probably the last 10 years, I just remember the same 5 cover bands. It was always Josh Logan, Mama Kicks, Chad LaMarche, all these local people. And I feel like I saw them at every bar in the city for the course of a decade, just about, which I'm not saying, they're great bands and everything like that, but it was just the same thing. And there was really no national acts because there's no mid-range venues say the Middle East and Boston, or, it's either the Verizon Center or a tiny bar. So there's not really those Axis Avalon back in the day that Boston had, Middle East, all those places.
Right. And you were a hip hop fan, right? Obviously you were.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I grew up listening to hip hop, punk, pretty much everything except pop country. I'm into an opera.
And you would come to the Middle East to see shows from Southern New Hampshire, correct?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like I've probably been to more shows there than any other venue aside from the Shaskeen at this point in my entire life. I've probably been 50 shows there.
Yeah, because that's the thing. That's what people from our area had to do. You had to go to the Middle East, which is about an hour plus from Southern New Hampshire to the Middle East to see a good hip hop show. You had to
Absolutely.
drive pretty far and back, and hopefully you were in a good condition by the time the show was over, that you didn't get a car accident driving
Yeah,
home.
or you had to get a hotel room, pay
Yep.
$40 for parking at least,
Yep.
$12 to $15 drinks. So it's like, we're able to do this in New Hampshire. There's enough people. I mean, we only have 100,000 people in Manchester, but it's like, you know, if we were able to make this happen here, great. And the other thing that was tough for New Hampshire, it's like, we get no compete clauses because we're only 45 minutes north of Boston, whereas like the next stop would be maybe Portland, Maine with 60,000 or 40,000 people in Burlington, Vermont, but they have like more vibrant music scenes, you know what I mean? And we have more people, but it's just like, people know Portland and Burlington for their music scenes, and Manchester, we're just forgotten about almost because we're too close to Boston, I feel like, but.
No, that's exactly what it is. Because I booked in Boston, and we'd have to have radius clauses in our offers, and there was nothing against you. It's just the way we had to do it.
Oh yeah.
And in the competition was like that too. You know, the big boys, Live Nation, AG. I mean, they'd have 60 to 90 mile an hour, 60 to 90 mile radius clauses.
Yep.
Which screwed over Manchester, and it also screwed over Providence, Rhode Island. Those two cities are just a little too close to Boston. Sometimes Boston doesn't care, but if they're going to pay top dollar, they want to make sure that they're going to get everybody. And that's what, and that's the thing. I have this conversation about the New England music scene. You know, a lot of people say it's the Boston music scene. I'm like, no, it's not, because you have people from Southern New Hampshire and Rhode Island that have to go to Boston to see a show because of this. So it's a great thing that you're able to bring culture, because I think it's also very challenging, as you know.
Like rolling a boulder up the hill.
Right, exactly. Another reason why I left, but it's an area that people don't necessarily want to drive to, but like you said, there's double the most of New Hampshire lives in Southern New Hampshire. Most of the population is from Southern New Hampshire. And it's a lot of people that work in Massachusetts. That's how we ended up there, you know. They work in Mass, they live in New Hampshire, and that's their lives. A lot of them.
Yep.
Southern New Hampshire. And then, you know, but to open a live music venue in that area in 2005, Manchester was a totally different scene back then too. And Manchester has gotten a lot more populated and a lot more going on, and a lot of people have moved to New Hampshire from Massachusetts. But I mean, it must have been really challenging when it first opened.
I mean, for us, it was great when it opened because it was probably the first time we had seen international stars. So we were opened by Matt Malloy from the Chieftains, who has 9 Grammys. You know, they did all the music for Riverdance. So Michael Flatley came over, Lord of the Dance, to cut our ribbon. Like, they shut down all of Elm Street, and the police put a stage in the middle of the road. We had 2,000 people trying to get in to a 250 capacity club. Like, we have the pictures of it. So that was a good boost. And I'm like, me and Elvis Costello's manager and Michael Flatley and all these people that flew over from Ireland just for this opening. So that was a great boost to start it off.
Yeah. So was it mainly Irish themed events in the beginning?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, but they always would do cover bands on Fridays and Saturdays and stuff like that. Or, you know, we have a sister pub down in Somerville, which is the Burn. So they'd use a lot of the bands, have them come up here and stuff like that, you know, back in that 2005, 2010 era. So yeah, that's our sister pub.
Oh, I didn't know you guys were had that going on too.
Yeah, we're not, like, basically the original owners of there. That's who we bought the Shaskeen from. They had a partnership with the Malloys. So I mean, it's a very long story, but either way, like, that's our sister pub. They're kind of designed the same, just the stages on a different side in the back in Somerville.
Yeah, I was about to say the Burn layout is split. From what I remember, I used to we'd stumble in there many a nights back in the day in Somerville, end up in the Burn watching. I don't know what we were watching. I wasn't there for that, but you know, we end up there. But you know, Davis Square, the Burn, man, that's a classic place. Joshua Tree, and now they've got some Somerville Theater, a bunch of different stuff there now.
Red Bones, like,
Anna's Taqueria. Well, yeah. But yeah, Davis Square is a great spot in the area. But back to Manchester. So what's it like having an Irish pub owned by Irish owners, and then all of a sudden you're doing hip hop?
I mean, it was strange how it all happened in the first place, because, you know, I was just booking the bands, getting emails, like all these inquiries, and I got this one randomly, and it's like, oh, would you like to book Inspector Decker? And I just had never thought it. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? I have the opportunity to get a dude from the Wu-Tang. So,
Yeah.
you know, we worked out the deal, and we had no idea what the hell we're doing. Like, for his rider, we got the rider for the entire Wu-Tang clan. I'm talking like 6 cases of Corona, 5 bottles of Hennessy, 5 Grey Goose. And we get there, and I'm like rolling it up to his hotel room on this giant cart. And he's just like, dude, I think you got the wrong rider. Like, this is for the whole Wu-Tang clan. But, you know, we were so nervous and wanted to impress. And like, people were psyched about it. And you know what I mean? Like, even our original owners and the chieftains, they play fiddles and flutes, but they listen to hip hop over there. They're like, listen, what we did back in Ireland was we kind of changed the scene. We played revolutionary music, kind of, you know, to keep their heritage alive, which is the same thing that they feel that hip hop is doing for that community. So even though, you know, it's like flutes and fiddles, like where the original owners were from, that was a very like war-torn area between the IRA and what was going on in Belfast, Northern Ireland during those troubled times. So they kind of sang the tunes to keep their traditions alive. So they looked at, so they were psyched about it too. And then we're just like, and we never want to get oversaturated in one type of music in the first place. So that's why, you know, you could go there one night, it'll be hip hop, next night punk, the next night, you know, be a country band. Like, you never know. So, you know, it's, you know, we kind of modeled it after what we saw at the Middle East. I mean, they had stuff going on every night. You never know if it was a punk show, folk show, hip hop show. And I thought that was great, because you get a cancellation, then you can completely sub in an entirely different crowd and it won't hurt you. You never get pigeonholed into like, you're just this type of place. So.
Yeah. And that is, that's being a live music venue. You know, for those that don't know, you know, being a live music venue is having a very diverse calendar. It's what it's all about. I mean, some venues are better at certain genres than others, but having diversity at your venue is very important. And not a lot of clubs want to do hip hop. So like, but I think the fact that you were a hip hop fan and enthusiast really kind of spearheaded this development that has turned into a lot of great hip hop shows that have gone on there. And Irish pubs are not easy to throw hip hop shows. And the reason I say that is I used to work, when I first started, I did McGann's. You know where McGann's is in North Station?
Oh yeah. Yeah, right across the street.
That was one of the few.
The long red one, right?
Yeah, I think it's closed now because they went down because of COVID. But that was one of the first spots I started doing shows at, you know, along with the Middle East. And it was, you know, it was a little, it was, they welcomed me. And you know, and they were straight Irish.
Oh
accent off the, you know, from the country and everything. And but a lot of people were like hesitant about it, like, ooh, Irish and hip hop. There was a lot of, you know, controversy there, but it all went fine. It all went fine. It was all good until one day they finally just said, you know, we're done. They closed. You know, they didn't want to do hip hop anymore. It was just because of isolated incidents, but and then, you know, and then they weren't even really a live music venue. They were just a regular pub. And then after me, you know,
I'm trying to picture where the stage would have been there.
It was like
I look at like very hallway, like, you know what I mean? Like a bar that spans the whole place and very thin behind it. So I was like, where would they set up to play? So
it was all tables. It was a restaurant pub. And then it was a step up. So like if you walked in the door, it was long, and then it had to the right had a step up section, a mezzanine, or you would call it, or something like that. And that's what I made the stage. So you'd come in and it'd be right there, the stage. And and we did some wild hip hop shows in there, man. Wild. So it can happen. But you know, everybody was always on edge about it, like, when's this going to end someday? But it went for years.
Good, yeah. So, I mean, I think another problem with this city is, like, for so many years they were literally like little like promotion companies kind of going to the nightclubs and literally just like straight robbing people, like charging people $50 a ticket, like for a walkthrough, just to like see a person, you know, like 2 Chainz or something like that. And this is the type of stuff. So then that puts a bad taste in people's mouths. So it's like every show we do, it's at least like a 45-minute performance, if not longer, like good openers. But I think that kind of screwed up the hip hop scene in our area for a little while too. And that's what it was for years.
Right. Yeah, the difference between a club appearance and a live performance is very big
Yeah.
difference. One time, one of my first shows with AZ, I booked AZ, the Middle East, one of the first ones I did,
Yep.
first big ones, and he wasn't used to doing live shows, so he thought he was getting booked for a performance, an appearance. Came to the Middle East, it's a packed house, and does 15 minutes and leaves. Now that's not what I thought was going to happen. I was early, so I didn't know to put like set length in the contracts.
Yeah.
But man, that was a controversial thing. I caught a lot of heat from that. He caught tons of heat for that. He later redeemed himself and came back and did longer sets. But man, that was the thing. That's a total thing.
Yeah.
Appearances versus live performances. I've never been a fan of appearances. Never.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, a lot of the promotion companies around here, it's just like, I look at them like used car salesmen. It's like literally like, this dude might show up to give you a contract who's like, this dude Jimmy, who knew one guy in Wu-Tang 20 years ago, who really has no relevance, if you know them at all. Like, what I mean? There's a lot of that like shit that goes on up here. It's I don't know, it's just straight trickery.
Yeah.
So,
and we have that in Boston too.
Yeah.
You just have a lot of people just trying to hustle on the come up and, just trying to make a buck, and it doesn't matter how. And, it takes away from people trying to do the right thing. But Manchester, how has it changed since the early 2000s to now? How has it changed? Manchester, New Hampshire.
I mean, right now we're at pretty much 99% occupied. Like everyone who lives apartments, condos has gone up. Real estate's crazy. The homeless population is probably quadrupled since the early 2000s. I mean, it's literally like everywhere you go up here. I mean, it's still a good place. People like the no sales tax and stuff like that. But I mean, it's just, I don't know. And then, adding the whole coronavirus to everything, I mean, that changed everywhere. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty much, just the poverty, I think, is risen anyway. And I think, it's still a good place, though, comparatively speaking to plenty of places like, East Hartford, St. Lawrence, sometimes, you know what I mean? But I don't know. I mean, that's pretty much the only change I've seen around here. I mean, there's some good things too. I mean, we've had the baseball stadiums, Fisher Cats, stuff like that. But that's pretty much the only change.
So the population has increased heavily over the last 20 years.
Oh yeah.
Why do you think everybody all of a sudden decided I want to live in Manchester? Cheaper than Boston?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, all of Southern New Hampshire, like most of the people would work in Boston. Yeah. You know what I mean? Live there. And plus, the no sales tax, but you make up for it on the real estate tax up here. So it's just, I don't know. I mean, it's close enough, convenient, but not, you don't have to, live in Jamaica Plains or Roxbury. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's close enough. Yep. The school systems are fine up here.
Right. So some of these hip hop events, let's talk about some stories. What are some classic hip hop events that have come through the Shaskeen? Some moments, some of your favorite moments, or some of your favorite stories. Tell me some good stories.
I mean, one of my favorite moments, I would say, when Scarface came through.
Oh yeah.
Like, I was like, this is like the nicest dude I've ever met in my life. So I grew up listening to like Ghetto Boys and stuff like that. So I mean, I'm thinking like Bushwick Bill, Chucky, and like I always liked Scarface. And literally, after dealing with all these shows, which I know you've done tons of yourself, sometimes you get the people that are like, where the hoes at, where the girls at, where the, what I mean? Like that want to party. Scarface walks in and he's like, hey, I came here with these 20 people. Don't you dare comp any one of their drinks, food, or anything like that. You support my music by booking me here, so I want to support your venue. I'm like, is this dude an angel? And like, like afterwards, he's the one person, he watched every opener. He didn't care about the room. He sat, talked with everyone, went around the crowd, like took pictures with everyone. I mean, he was just, I don't know, man, a pleasure to deal with. And just, I mean, all the old school guys that have been there, done that are great. So it's just, younger ones can be a little pain in the ass sometimes. But aside from that, like, that was one of my favorite moments. Killer Priest is great to deal with too, man. He's like I don't know, man. He's got like the the aura of like a 13-year-old, like happy child all the time and intelligent as hell. Trying to think, I mean, there's like just about a story for every show. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's good. I mean, I never did it. I have done Killer Priest. It was a black market militia show, but
yeah.
My Scarface story is crazy too, because DMX just randomly showed up at the event and just drove 4 hours to see Scarface at the Middle East and just surprised everybody. Came out, did a couple songs live at the Middle East, and that's one of my greatest moments. And I'm a diehard Scarface fan anyway, so
yeah,
add DMX to it, it was like, wow, dude.
Man, that's amazing.
Yeah,
and he played "Wish You Were Here" by Pink Floyd on the guitar. I didn't even know he played guitar. I'm like, what? And now we're in New Hampshire, so you know, I mean, it's a room full of people who all parents probably listen to Pink Floyd, so everyone's like singing along. Like, it's the strangest thing I've ever, like, I did not expect this at all.
Yeah, he did that when I saw him first do that when I did Ghetto Boys too. I did Ghetto Boys show, and that's when he brought out the guitar for that. And I was like, whoa, where did this come from?
Yeah.
so yeah, Scarface is arguably he is one of my favorite MCs. I'd say arguably one of the greatest. And Scarface at the Shaskeen in Manchester, that's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I was shocked to get Maya and Mobb Deep as well. Like, I mean, to
Mobb
see
Deep
like
at the Shask, like again, this is a 200 person, what's capacity?
250. And that's between both rooms. So the room at the bandstand, I mean, I had to lie to so many people. I'm like, yeah, no, our capacity is 300. I don't care. I'm like, just get them here. You're going to get paid either way. Like, by any means necessary is how I wanted to book these shows. So it's just like,
yeah. And you're the one booking it all, right?
Yeah. Yep. I mean, I've worked with other agencies and stuff like that and booking agencies, but pretty much I decide who we book and the dates and everything like that.
Yeah. So you're basically, as in people that don't know, some of the talent buyer and owner. It's not an easy thing to be both of, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it creates a little bitterness against other people who only do bookings because they look at it like, oh, well, you get the bar sales too. I'm like, well, it's not my fault that like I decided to become an owner, so I'd have that luxury that I could use the bar sales as well. You know what I mean? Are you saying other promoters are bitter? Yeah, like companies that only book shows, right? Yeah. Like say like multiple venues and stuff like that. They're like, oh, well, it's not fair. You're able to get this because you're the owner too. I'm like, listen, I know a million owners. None of them want to be promoters. And I know a million promoters that would love to be venue owners. Okay. So like, I'm sorry that I waited until I owned a venue to start booking the things I wanted to. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And you're most venues have their own talent buyers anyway, right? They have their built-in talent buyers. Big venues, most of them. Yep. They don't have promoters. They have talent buyers. And they, they make the same, they make deals based on what's good for the venue, not what's good just for the door. And unfortunately, as an independent promoter who's done both, you have more leverage when you work for the venue. You can take a loss on the tickets, you make it up in the bar, versus when you're a promoter, you can only make it on the door. Yeah, that's the downside. That's why it's hard to be an independent promoter. And that's why absolutely guys like me are kind of going away nowadays, especially because of COVID. But it's just too hard to make money if you don't get a piece of the bar. And when you're doing live music, and then promoters are like, "Oh, I'm sure you hear this. Well, we want all the door, and you take all the bar." Well, when you're doing live music, you can't really always offer that because you have hard expenses in a venue. You got to pay all the staff, the door people, the sound people, the advertising people. There's a lot of extra costs in there. So it's not easy to just give everybody the door. It's not like a club where you're just paying the DJ and you make the bar, and it's different. So there's a big misconception about that. People think that they have to pay a room cost or whatever, that you're getting screwed, but that is not the case. Yeah. Go ahead. Oh, no. I didn't have. I was just gonna say, like, with door deals, a lot of times I'm fine with that if they want to keep the entire door because it's like a smaller place, and it's like you always wonder, like, so there will be times like with the contracts that we have there, it's like if we don't sell it out, it's we're not breaking even on the ticket price, so it does take the bar, but it still is something that people look forward to, and even if we didn't kill it every show, the good acts that we've had, people end up remembering the place, and then
the first couple of years, you know, whether it be Inspector Deck or like Slick Rick coming through, people thought it was like false advertising. There's like, he's not really playing at a small Irish pub in Manchester, New Hampshire. Like, no way. Literally thought it was false advertising to the point where I had to put out videos. I'm like, he doesn't travel around with the giant Shaskeen sign. Like, this really happened, man. This is not like IG or, you know what I mean? Like, so.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, Manchester did not have a history of this, as far as I've been in the area, of doing these type of events in Southern New Hampshire. They were all going to Boston. So yeah, I can see how people be like, no way. Yep. But as a promoter, some of my favorite events were doing those intimate small shows. You know, those shows where the act was bigger than the venue and he was just doing it. It was a dope scene. And you're doing that. And I did that in McGann's, and I did that at these other places all over town, Western Front Shopping Block. These were like smaller, intimate venues with bigger acts. And it was just really dope to see an artist in those type of environments.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great. I mean, I really do think that's what makes it a unique scene there, because it's literally like seeing like your favorite artist in like a living room. Wherever you stand in that room, you're so close. And I mean, you can go to all these big shows, have 3-foot barricades, bouncers in front of you and stuff like that. And it's just an entirely different feel. When you're in a small room, it feels, you know what I mean? It's like almost like it's just cozy. And it's very hard to find that in like big cities. There's not like a lot of venues that do that. And I understand, you know what I mean? Yeah, to have that small amount of people and to get the artist with the ticket price, you know, that has to jack it up. But to try and find that median line where you can do both, I think is great.
Yeah, and in the Middle East, and it is, in the Middle East was actually, we did a lot of shows that, you know, even though the Middle East is double the size of the Shaskeen, the downstairs, we still had done some big acts in there that were too big for the Middle East, right? They were like
absolutely
underplays at the Middle East, and people would say the same thing. Like, it's an intimate place to see the artist they really want to see, or they saw them before they got famous, really famous and big. And that experience is great, you know, or, you know, a lot of the nostalgic acts that you're booking. I mean, either way, you know, and it's in people in New Hampshire, I would imagine, love the fact that it's in New Hampshire and they don't have to travel in their backyard.
Yeah, I mean, New Hampshire, we still have the highest rate of alcoholism for any state. I think we've had that title for 50 years. So, you know, the less driving we have to do afterwards, the better. You know what I mean? In 93, and getting in and out of Boston, unless you take the T, even if you go to Sullivan Square, it shuts down at like midnight, show's already over. So it just ends up being, you know, those additional costs with hotel rooms, gas, parking, drink prices twice as much. So that it is nice to have it here. It's more economical for people in New Hampshire anyway.
That's an interesting statistic. You're full of the good ones today. Let's talk about the green room. Shaskeen green room, because I think this is a pretty funny story. Explain to me what your green room is.
Where I live, right behind the venue. It's 10 feet away. People get left alone. It's got I'm in it right now. It's got a bunch of weird artwork and, you know, bear heads and just random stuff, but people remember the place. I got like a weird old 80s toy collection. And a lot of the Golden Era dudes are like my age. Like, dude, I remember this He-Man or this Thundercat dude. But it reminds them of the place after they leave. Because, you know what I mean? Like, half the artists, they're touring the world and all over the country. And it's like, oh, this is the place with the weird artwork and like the 80s toys. Or like, they'll remember my dog. Or, you know, there's like a bearskin rug here that Mobb Deep put on their website with a picture of it. And R.I.P. Prodigy, man, he was a great person to deal with as well. And like, yeah, that's pretty much the green room, man. Like, this is where we spend our time. Come up here with me and my buddy Nick, who's been with me on every show. And yeah, people get left alone. We don't have to go downstairs. You know, people could smoke up here and stuff like that. So it's just much easier. But I feel trapped here,
I just want to recap what he just said for those. He has made his own living space, his own apartment, condo, whatever, the green room. It's not attached to the club. It's the green room is his apartment. So I don't know if anybody knows that, like, if you've ever been to a Middle East show and you've seen the green room or what happens in green rooms, it's not ideal to live and have people use your apartment as a green room. So you are a very special character for doing that. I'll say that.
I've been told that many times. I'm like, I can't believe you let these people come in your place, because sometimes, you know, there'll be 13 people. And especially having a relationship. Like with my girlfriend, she's like, why are there 13 of these fat girls up here? I'm like, they're the artist friends, man. I'm just sitting here, and then I'll have to get on the phone with the DJ's wife. It's like, yeah, we're being good. You know what I mean? These girls that are here that you hear in the background, we have nothing to do with that. But
well, last time I was there, you didn't have a girlfriend. Now you have a girlfriend. That even adds a little more. That makes it even more challenging for
yes.
yourself.
Yeah, but it's just, like they realize they can come hang out too. I mean, depending, you never know. Every artist is different, but a lot of the people I deal with, man, they're great, especially like old school dudes like KRS, Slick Rick. Their wives are their manager pretty much. So that, some people come in, right out, and then there are people, hate to name names, but like cool. I've had Coolio and Mr. Cheeks and Lost Boys at my place till like 6 a.m., which I'm fine with, but I'm not getting any younger. I can't do this when I'm 55. You know what I mean? I'm 43 now, but I can't imagine being 60, like staying up till 6 a.m. And it almost feel like I'm trapped here, or I have to build a green room down there somewhere. So I may be moving, so I'm going to try and relocate it now that I'm getting on in my sunset years.
Yeah, I just think that's hilarious. I think that's so funny. So let's talk about rap night, because I mean that's a local rap night you've been doing, which is a local showcase every Monday night. Is that what it is?
Sunday nights.
Every Sunday night. Sorry. So talk to me about that, because that's been running for a while, right?
Yeah, it's been, man, I want to say 8 or 9 years at this point. And this started we went down to see RZA down, I think, at where the old Roxy used to be. I forget what it's called.
Royale.
Yes. And then we met, so we saw an opener, this kid, I9, and it was like, oh, it's from New Hampshire. So this is when we first started. We only had done one show, and we had like Cool Keith coming up. He's like, dude, I love Cool Keith. I'd love to open for that. He introduced me to these guys from Portland, Maine. So they were affiliated with the guy Daddy-O with Wu-Tang and stuff like that. And they had their own night that was successful in Portland, Maine for like the last, 5 to 10 years, just doing like freestyle battles, ruckus cups, like, let's try and make this work down here. So I don't actually run that, like we have DJ Myth, Shoop, I9, Ill by Instinct. It's a group of collective people, mostly from Portland, Maine, in Dover, that have been running this, and they do a great job. They're the best people to deal with. And, like they brought through acts like, just Gift of Gab and stuff like that. And they sponsor all the local artists. So, I mean, that's been going, and it's a weekly thing too. And everyone loves it. And yes, it's good to have something consistent too, like a residency like that.
And that's not an easy thing to pull off every Sunday night. I'm gonna tell you right now, I tried.
No, even if it was monthly. But
I tried it. I tried it as a monthly. I did local showcases in the beginning, but then I tried to bring it back on a Monday. Like once a month on a Monday, and I couldn't make it work. So I mean, in Boston, so it's hard to do.
Yeah, it's a tough night of the week, but we did it with like our industry night and paired it with that. So all the bartenders, waitresses, people in the restaurant industry, they get 50% off their tabs. So that was a nice pairing to pair that with it. So it's like we have all the industry people coming in anyway, and like, yeah, man, this is sick. Like I never thought I would see this on a Sunday night, because especially in New Hampshire, Sunday, Monday nights, there's not much to do and not much going on. So it's hard to attempt something like that. So that's why it's great it's been going so long. I mean, now we've been open 16 years. So to have things that are like a staple in the city just makes it easier as the years go on. It's just, we just hope everyone stays young forever. Like I said, like I can't stay up when I'm 60 until 5 a.m, and I don't want the rap night guys to ever age either. And now it's just trying to find the next generation that can kind of pull up the reins.
Yeah, I feel that. Let's talk about COVID.
Oh, I'm well familiar with it.
How bad did it hurt you as a venue?
I mean, being known as initially an Irish pub, closing down the day before St. Patrick's Day, I mean, we do a week's worth of sales in that day. We open at 6 a.m. So we're talking about like the money we make in March, we save it for the slow times in summertime when everyone's going out to the beach. So that was brutal. So yeah, everyone had to close, but we're an Irish pub who had to close right before St. Patrick's Day. And, obviously it was a serious pandemic, and it, we were shut down for 3 months. I think we were allowed to open seated, masks, June 15th, I want to say. And it probably took a year before we were allowed to do live music again.
New Hampshire said wait a year, or did you just decide to wait that long?
No, as soon as we were allowed to, we were doing it.
So they said no live event. New Hampshire said no live events until when?
Like
June,
May 1st
June?
was May. We started doing it in June because everyone's like, oh, you can do live music now. I was like, cool. I don't book the bands 24 hours before the day. So it's like on April 30th, I can't fill up 3 months worth of acts in 24 hours. Like, it's just not possible. So, we waited a month and, plugging it back in, the same thing. And for all the bands that we've worked with, like, people broke up, like a lot of the bands that's what they did for a living. They had to go get other jobs or do something else. So we probably lost a good 40% of the acts that we used to have prior to COVID.
Damn. How are you doing booking the acts now? Is it hard to fill up the calendar, or are you finding it?
No, it's good, but we used to have acts on Thursday nights, and now we just keep that open for like a tour comes through. So we have something go on every night of the week. Thursday is kind of like that open night of the week that if someone's coming through, if not, we're just throwing an iPod back there and just keep the bar open. So we, it's been going great though. And now I'm not sure how it's going to pan out with Boston. I think January 15th, everyone has to have vaccination cards to be able to go to bars or music venues.
It's always been like that, to be honest. I mean, I thought I was going back to work when the vaccine first came out in the last summer.
Yeah.
But when all the venues instantly went vaccine requirements out here. So for hip hop, that was a big controversial issue. For a lot of people, it's a controversial issue. But for me, I was specialized in hip hop. It was like there was a lot of fighting back on that. So basically, it kind of screwed up booking hip hop up here. Now you don't have vaccine requirements at your place, right?
No. What I found is, like, especially when we were allowed to do live music again, we did really well with like the hip hop based shows and like the hardcore and the punk shows. It was more like the, I'd say like the older crowd, like, say like Joshua Tree, like U2 tribute bands. It was like the older generations that were more on the fence because they were, it was just that demographic was a lot more concerned.
Yeah.
So we were very strong with hip hop and hardcore when we started out.
Right.
Because those people were ready to go. They're like, oh my God, we've been cooped up too long. Let's go see a show.
No, they were ready to go on our end, but when the venue in the Middle East said you need to show proof of vaccination, I did not have them ready to go.
Yeah. I mean, was that like a venue thing?
This was one of the first.
By the isolated venue, or was that like a city mandate?
Well, first it was a venue mandate, but then I think it became a city mandate. Cambridge and Boston both followed suit on that.
Yeah.
So that has caused a lot of issues. It's just a lot of issues in general that have caused it. For guys like me, it was just like I'll just sit back. I was like, this ain't worth it. For a guy like you that owns a venue, that owns the thing, you have to push forward regardless.
Oh, absolutely. It's like, I mean, we still have a lease for our business, so it's like, what are we gonna do to say give up, and then we still owe hundreds of thousands for the next 5 years? So it's like we don't really have the option to close it down if we want to. Or try and sell it when the world's closed down? Like, that's not. Yeah. So yeah, we had to just wait it out either way. So it's good to be back, and I hope it doesn't slide backwards again.
Yeah, I mean, it's ramping up, but it seems like people aren't really. You're doing okay though. People don't care. They're coming out anyway, right?
Yeah.
And do you require masks for people to come in there?
No.
So you're pretty open. You're pretty open to just whatever people want to do.
We're open 100%. I mean, I'm not, not to get political or how I feel.
No, we don't have to do that.
Or anything like that. I just feel, if people want to go out, then they can. You know what I mean? We're not. If they want to wear masks, we don't shame people who wear masks. Like, whatever you want to do, So it's like, and I think, New Hampshire, it's different than Mass. I think Mass will have more mandates. New York City, stuff like that. But
New
I'm
Hampshire's
hoping we don't follow suit. Because I mean, I think that's why we had to close down the day before St. Patrick's Day, because Mass had already closed right before that. And like, oh, now all these people are going to come up from Boston to New Hampshire on St. Patrick's Day, and that's going to create a cluster zone. So that's why that had to happen that day. I'm pretty sure, you know what I mean? Like, that's why we closed the day before St. Patrick's Day in 2019.
Yeah. Being a owner of a venue with partners, I mean, I was a GM of a club before COVID, and it was a lot of friggin' work. I mean, talk to me about the trials and tribulations of being an owner, booking agent, besides COVID. I mean, granted, it's a small place in the Middle East, but it's still there's a lot of headaches.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing about having different partners. So we basically have our own roles, whereas I handle the booking, the accounting, the bill paying, and stuff like that. I have another guy who's like a specialist at dealing with all the beer reps, making sure what we have is stocked. Another guy specializes in the kitchen, the cooks, the bouncers, and then another guy like doing the schedule. So we all have our roles there, and you know what I mean? We don't really cross on the other ones. You know, like one of my buddies is like, oh, dude, I think this band would be great. I'm like, yeah, cool. Then we'll do that. But you know what I mean? Like, so it makes it much easier having people in their roles that just specialize in certain areas instead of trying to do it all. Because it'd be impossible. I mean, just the music scene itself is a job in and of itself. So if I have to bartend, get people a honey mustard, answer the phone, like it's just not possible. And keep an eye on the place at the same time, like give the donations to the police and fire department when they come through, the politicians, the function room, you know what I mean? It's too much. So it is a small place and there are 4 owners, but we all have our roles and it works out great, like the dynamic between us, because we all kind of specialize in different areas of it.
That's cool though. But just think about that for people that don't know. There's 4 owners for one bar that's 220 capacity, right? 250 capacity.
Yeah, that's why I live in an apartment, not a mansion.
That's how much work is involved.
Oh,
you know
absolutely.
what I mean?
Absolutely.
It speaks to, you know, some people think it's just so easy that don't, you know, they just like, oh, I want to open my own club. I always thought that. I was like, oh, but the transition of me going from promoter to is to be a club owner someday. But once I became GM and I worked for the Middle East, I was like, oh, this is just like craziness. You know what I mean? Now, granted, it wasn't all just the nature of the business. It was a family business. There's a lot of craziness there, but it's just you got to have a solid team or solid partners, or you're going to go nuts.
Well, it helped. I mean, we all grew up in like the industry. So we were all bartenders or like cooks and managers. So we had been in this industry for 15 years prior to owning this place. And yeah, I mean, we've seen so many places open and close. And, you know, like say a guy who worked at Fidelity made a ton of money. He's like, you know, I always wanted to own a bar, and they'll just open a bar just so he can try and hit on young chicks or whatever. But they don't know that he's just like, you know, I have money and these are the people who've served me my whole life. So this must be an easy industry. And it is not that at all. It is like the competition, man. For God, like you never know.
What's the competition out there? Is there other venues doing live music in Manchester?
Yeah, I mean, 2 just opened
venues
within the last
clubs?
Couple months. Both. There's a new place called Angel City Music Hall that opened. You know, they're more like in the rock venue, and then the Goat just opened as a country venue across from the Verizon Center. They own like Wally's out in Hampton and the Goat out there. So, I mean, they have a reputation for doing really well in the beach side areas anyway. So they just opened in Manchester as well. Jewel, Strange Brew kind of specializes in the blues. Murphy's does a lot of cover bands, Dairy Fields. You know, there's a lot of places, but a lot of places, you know, they have owners that are not there and don't, you know, they just have the same 5 bands that they've always had for the last 20 years. And, you know, teach their own. They don't care about what they have there for music as long as it brings money in. So
that's what it eventually becomes.
I feel like
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it separates us a little because we actually care about who we book. And it's not like we get proposed things. Like if there's someone we want, like we target and we're like, we need to figure out how to get in touch with this person because they do great here. So that's
I want to talk about that because I think what you just said right there is very important because I dealt with a lot of clubs. I worked with a lot of bars that didn't give a shit about anything other than what's bringing in money and how's this going to look on our behalf. We don't care about anything about the music. We don't care about any of that stuff. You know, are you bringing in something negative? You know, they would just like pay me, overpay me, or I don't give a shit.
Yep.
You actually care. You care about music. and you care about the acts you book for the most part. That's huge, man. That's huge, because that's, I think, the key to your, not the key, but like it's one of the one of the keys to your success is because you do care. You know, and people build up that energy. People want to work at a venue and care about music. When it comes to a venue that cares about music, cares about music culture, not just, you know, what did the bar do?
Oh yeah, I mean, that's just been my whole life. Like I've always cared about music. So if someone doesn't care about music, I don't even know how to relate to them. You know what I mean? Right. It's like, you know, I moved around when I was a kid. So it's like my music was something I always had with me that gave me like a sense of home almost. So it's like, I care deeply about every act that we book. And if I really am into someone, even if it's like a folk or punk, I'm like looking up how to get in touch with them. Like, listen, man, here's who I am. This is our venue. Here's who we've had here. Like, we need you to play here. How can we make this happen? And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but there's always that effort being put in and like the actual like targeting of really good artists that we want to play here instead of just, you know, like choosing off a menu. Okay, I could get him. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
that's awesome.
I feel like a lot of those owners, they look at only the day. Whereas like we look at the longevity of the place in the first place. So even if a show doesn't crush it, we had this great artist here. All these people had a great time. They're going to tell their friends. And you know what I mean? The next shows will be busier. And people are like, yo, remember the time that they had Scarface or Mobb Deep at the Shaskeen? Or like, I've been told people we didn't even have played here. You know, like I hear people like, hey, do you remember when you had Ghostface? I'm like, no, we tried, but that show got canceled, but thank you. So it's like, shit, do I just lie and say, yeah, man, it was great when we had him here? You know what I mean? We get accused of having shows we didn't even have, so.
Well, I think that speaks to the branding of the venue. The more good shows you book, whether they make money or lose money, it brings that attention to the venue and brands you as a place that puts on good shows. Because there's a lot of venues that pop up. Yeah, we're going to do a show over here. But people don't know the venue and they never seen a show there. They're hesitant to go. But that's why the Middle East was so successful. Just 40 years of doing events, you knew where it was.
Oh, absolutely,
yeah. You know what I mean? And I think you guys are becoming that. You're like, you know, you're used to seeing great hip hop shows there and other music there, and you're in a great location in Manchester. And it's just like, yeah, it works. Let's talk about location real quick. Your location is very key to your success as well, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, we're right across from City Hall. So, I mean, we're like 2 blocks from, you know, the Verizon Center, SNHU Center now. Like, we're in the heart of downtown. And, you know, that was, you know, when we first bought the place, we were some of the youngest owners in the city. So it's like, we felt like there was a magnifying glass. Like, these kids are going to let whatever happen. But, you know, we did everything very professionally. And so, like, we're good with like the police department, the politicians, people sign a paper, because if you don't do that, good luck. You know, I mean, there's so many venues that open, don't know what the hell they're doing. And like, it's chaos and they get shut down very quickly. So it's like, that's one thing I didn't know how, like, the political and handshakes part of like the bar industry. It's not like how good you do your job. Like, you do have to be connected with the city as well. You can't be an outsider. You have to make those donations, be a part of the events, the parades, and everything going on as a part of the community. And you can't exclude yourself from it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be on the good side of the police and the liquor commission and anybody that works for the state or the city. Yeah. You have to be doing the right thing. No shady business, least shady business, whatever. You know, but like you have to have a good thing. Having a restaurant helps you, I think. That always used to say that having a restaurant, food makes it more community based, makes you able to, it's not just selling booze to whatever. You have a restaurant, and you know, and you're a pillar in the community now, in the music community, and it's just amazing to me, because I would have never thought that starting out in the music scene that Manchester would have a place like that you've created. I might have stayed.
When I look back, I look at some, like, I don't even know how the hell we pulled some of this off, but it's good now, man. Like, and it's good that we've been open for so long and those signs are slowing down. I mean, restrictions, whatever, like, I mean.
And you got a really good attitude about it. Because I'll tell you, a lot of club owners do not have his attitude. They're bitter, they're angry.
Man, you have to love what you do. That's why.
Well, I'm glad that the stress hasn't destroyed your positivity.
No. There'll always be another day.
Amazing, amazing. And on that, we're gonna wrap this up, man. Josh, I really appreciate this, man. I'm gonna post this up here soon. But man,
Yeah, man.
salute to
Sorry
you,
about
man.
the microphone thing before. I was trying my hardest.
I don't know what that was. I've never seen
Yeah,
that
me
on
neither.
But I want to thank everybody for tuning into the Leeds Entertainment Podcast, brought to you by Mellow Dispensary in Haverhill and Chubby Chickpea Restaurant. We've spoken with Shaskeen owner Joshua Ames, and thank you, brother. We'll talk soon and keep doing what you're doing, brother.
All right. Thank you very much, man. It was an honor.
Take care, bro.
Later.
Later.